The J1 League is Japan's first-tier football competition. It was started back in 1993 and is arguably Asia's best football league. But before we get into the stadiums, today's video is once again sponsored by the OneFootball app. OneFootball has all the bases covered for a football fan from anywhere in the world to keep up to date with their favourite teams, competitions, and even players. Fixtures, results, transfers, you name it. Whether you follow the J1 League, the A-League, the MLS, the Premier League, OneFootball's got it covered. So if you're interested, you can download the OneFootball app for free by clicking the link in the description. Here are the J1 League 2021 stadiums. Sapporo Dome. Hokkaido is the northernmost of Japan's main islands, and it gets quite cold, so a domed stadium is understandable. It's shared with a baseball team, but that doesn't affect the field, as it is completely separate. It was one of the first stadiums in the world with a retractable field. The same team also plays at Sapporo Atsubetsu Stadium, presumably when there are scheduling conflicts with the baseball team. But it's nice to get some fresh air every now and then. Having a running track around the field isn't ideal, and there are dozens of stadiums across Japan that look exactly the same. Yotech Stadium Sendai. That's better, a football-specific stadium, and a pretty good one too. As you can tell by the name Yotech, it is sponsored by the multinational yurt manufacturing company. It's a no-frills stadium, but it's got everything you need, and it looks pretty good as well. Kashima Soccer Stadium, home to the Kashima Antlers, who have a very appropriate name. Kashima means Deer Island. It was first built as a very modest 13,000 capacity stadium, but was upgraded for the 2002 World Cup. On the inside you have the typical 4 individual stands with the corners being filled in, but up top there's a continuous wraparound seating bowl. Saitama Stadium 2002. This stadium's an interesting one, because if it didn't have those roofs you'd think, it's an alright stadium, but those strikingly beautiful, very Japanese looking roofs do make all the difference. It's an incredible stadium. Obviously, it was built for the 2002 World Cup, hence the name. The fans must like it as well because the Red Diamonds have the highest average attendance in the league at around 34,000 in 2019. Hitachi Kashiwa Stadium. This ground isn't just sponsored by Hitachi, they actually own it. It's quite a simple stadium. You can tell that it started off as a very small stadium and that seating was added gradually over time. It does look like something you'd see in Southern Europe in particular. Not bad at all. Ajinomoto Stadium. Not just home to FC Tokyo, but their local rivals Tokyo Verdy, who are actually in the second division. Clearly this stadium was designed to accommodate athletics, which takes away from the fan experience for football. It is a pretty good looking stadium though, especially if you like the colour grey, because there is a lot of it.
Well, actually, grey's not a colour, it's a shade. You stupid head.
Okay then. Mitsuzawa Stadium. There's not too much to say about this stadium, other than to mention how there's not too much to say about this stadium. Other than to mention how there's not too much to say about this stadium. Other than to mention how there's not too much to say about this stadium. This happens from time to time. Other than to mention how there's not too much to say about this stadium. There we go. It's just very simple. Not even any roofs to speak of. But at least there isn't a running track around it. There's a separate stadium for that over here. Nissan Stadium. No, not that one. That's better. This stadium, also in Yokohama, is the biggest J1 League stadium. It also has the biggest distance between the stands and the field, which is less of a brag. It has hosted a World Cup final though, and no other stadium in Asia can claim the same, which is crazy to think of given that Asia makes up over half the world's population. Todoroki Stadium. Now this is an interesting looking stadium. If you are gonna have a running track, at least make it a vibrant colour like this one. It's been around a while, this stadium, except for this stand here, which was built as part of an expansion in 2015. It looks very futuristic and really helps this stadium stand out from a lot of the similar looking stadiums in Japan. Lemon Gas Stadium Hiratsuka. As mentioned earlier, there are a lot of stadiums that look more or less the same as this in Japan. But I do like how it's surrounded by trees. That's a nice touch. It is, after all, situated in a park. Yeah, kinda like this one. IAI Stadium. Alright, this one's got a bit more going on. For starters, it's a great location, overlooking the city, and there's plenty of greenery. The stadium itself is very asymmetrical. Once again, it definitely looks like one that's evolved naturally over the years. I was wondering why they've kept this section of the stand without a roof. Then I realized it's probably so those sitting on the other side can still see Mount Fuji in the backdrop. Beautiful. Toyota Stadium. Okay, now you're taking the mick. Haha, we get it. That one's also called Toyota Stadium. Pathetic. Anyway, this Toyota Stadium is more than just sponsored by Toyota. It's located in the city of Toyota, which in turn was named after Toyota, the car company. There's actually some really strict rules in this place. If you're seen driving a Nissan or a Mazda, you can go to prison. And if you have the nerve to drive around in a Suzuki, well, that's the death penalty, I'm afraid. I suppose I should talk about the stadium now. It looks incredible first and foremost, but perhaps the most interesting feature is the slightly unconventional retractable roof, which folds itself up, kinda like those annoying blinds, except it's all in one piece. Panasonic Stadium Suita. The newest stadium in the league is an absolute gem of a stadium, not just because it vaguely looks like a gem, but it's an excellent modern stadium that looks very cutting edge. Not just because it looks like a gem, but it's got all the bases covered, and coming from this stadium in 2015 makes it extra special. No offense to that stadium, it's just, well, it's not as good, is it? Yanmar Stadium. Opening way back in 1964, still the only time Tokyo has hosted the Olympics, where it hosted some of the Olympic football matches. It's quite an imposing stadium, especially when viewed from street level. But once again, it has a running track. I just don't get it. There's a track and field stadium right next door, but you still, whatever. Nagoya Stadium. There's no other stadium in Japan that looks quite like this. Similar to Toyota Stadium, it too has a retractable roof, although it's a different type. This one slides along huge arches. It was one of the many stadiums in this video that was built for the World Cup. However, it looked completely different during the tournament. The roof wasn't added until afterwards. Edion Stadium. It was built for the 1992 Asian Cup, where Japan won its first ever title. It looks somewhat similar to this stadium in Mexico, with the addition of this roof canopy consisting of a big arch, from which it gets the nickname, the Big Arch. It's a fairly scenic spot as well. I like this one. Pocari Sweat Stadium. Surprisingly, Pocari Sweat is the name of a drink, one that is manufactured by the owner of the team, Otsuka Pharmaceutical. The stadium itself is okay, but a little uninspiring, and it uses bench seating still, which is a little surprising. Best Denki Stadium. Well, I have to agree. Out of all the Denki stadiums, and there are a lot of them, this has got to be the best one. If I told you a stadium was located right next to an airport, you probably wouldn't expect the location to be so idyllic. It sits among a little forest and even has a pond right next to it. Very tranquil. Well, the airport is still there, so it's probably quite noisy, but I really like this one. Ekime Real Estate Stadium. Once again, there's no other stadium in Japan that looks quite like this. With steep grandstands akin to those you'd find at an F1 racetrack. But an even more unique feature is the fact that two of the corners of the stadium are just cut off. Ironically, due to a lack of real estate. They better get on the phone to Ekime and purchase a few hundred square feet of land. Actually, that's not how real estate works, is it? Showa Denko Dome Oita. It's one of my favorite dome stadiums in the world. The roof situation, once again, is quite unique. When opened, it kinda looks like the exoskeleton of an insect or something. The interior looks excellent as well. And like all good Japanese products, it has a Chinese knockoff version. Come on China, that's just blatant. You can do better than that. And those were the J1 League 2021 stadiums. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Arigatou gozaimasu. Have a good one.